please do roll call?
Yes. Ms. Cook?
Here.
Ms. Falcone?
Here.
Ms. Kunkel?
Here.
Mr. Miller?
Here.
Mr. Polinsky?
Here.
Ms. Laura?
Here.
Mr. Stout?
Here.
Mrs. Stout? All are present.
Thank you. We do not have any minutes to approve. Communications.
The first item is a request from a resident and a volunteer regarding mini rubber bands in the park. Last year during the YMCA program, the children at the YMCA made a mess with the mini rubber bands, and nothing was said because we thought they'd improve. It hasn't, and community-wide, more and more kids are using them, and it gets the pavilion messy, but also it's kind of a hazard to the littler kids throughout the park if they're picking them up, which is true about anything, but these kind of are not biodegradable either. We've had incidents with other stuff in the park, but these aren't blowing away or going away. So it was suggested that they be banned in the park, or at least with the YMCA park program every summer.
So we could just put that on the list of things, do's and don'ts for the YMCA?
Correct, if the council so chooses.
Yeah, that's a great idea.
Okay, thank you. The next item I received, and you should have it in your packet, an email from the library. They would like to do an event centered around Sheldon the turtle, and they would like to place little Sheldons or something into the creek and use the park area and hopefully use the pavilion. They haven't hammered out all of the details. So I think they just would like, before they go through all those planning and all that work, to get maybe preliminary approval by council to even think about doing an event like this.
The idea of the turtles are they would be numbered or marked in some way, and then the children dress
Like a race, yeah.
and there's a race.
It's like the rubber duck races. Right.
I don't know if anybody here has ever attended one of those. The children love them. They're so much fun. I would have a huge concern, based on what I've seen of a number of those I've attended, is the kids tend to run along the edge of the creek or the river, whatever it is, and they want to see where theirs is, and if it's stuck in the grass, they want to quick it down and get it out of the grass. We have those big boulder, sharp edge rocks. And if young children are running along there and trip and stumble and hit their head, so I would have concerns about that. If it were up further where there aren't the rocks, I might feel that's a lot safer. I mean, we still tumble in the water, but
Okay.
that's one thought to keep in mind. I don't know how that could be addressed.
Okay.
I assume we would require a certificate.
Yes, all those details will be, this is just preliminary approval,
And there's no conflict with the August 12th?
not with anything on our schedule. At least, you'd have to check with the link.
Yeah, there wasn't an events list, I was
The
just checking.
task can be done last December. I think it's a cool idea. Absolutely fine. You just gotta figure out the logistics of it, so.
Yeah, and they're tentative anyway, so.
It was going to be done last December, so we're good.
Okay, I can go ahead with that. Right? The next item, both Michelle and I have been working with the school district. They had approached us to ask if at the 3 bus stops that they call communal, where groups of children gather to get the bus, if there could be some signage or some sort of safety devices or something. So signs were what was pursued to tell drivers, hey, there's a group of kids up ahead.
These are the ones that I proposed, and both Andrew and Paige said yes. So there'd be 6 of them needed. They cost around $86 each. So if we would say yes, they can put them up, and we would put them up, order them, put them up, everything else, and send the school district invoice to pay for them.
So we, just so council knows, last year when we did the school zones and made them all compliant, the burden of all those signs were on the borough.
Right. So it's just the signs we're charging and not our labor?
No,
Correct.
just the signs, because then we can hang them up. In addition, Ethan brought up, we painted all the school colors, crosswalks. So if we're ordering signs for them, when I contact them to tell them that, yes, we approved this and we'll order the signs and send you the invoice, I'll make a design for them to approve too, just like a logo with the school sign on right at the crosswalks, slow school route, just so that there's some kind of awareness that this is a walking. I'm gonna see what the school says too, because they're gonna have.
A different sign will get someone's attention.
Yeah, this one, too, that's why
It was out, we
yeah.
were gonna expand on those, first we did the crosswalks, and then I wanted to put
Yeah.
little, just whatever it looks like, just so you go over with that.
Yep.
And these are PennDOT compliant, those wouldn't have to be.
All right,
The little, okay, here's a school route.
so do we have to vote on this?
You would need to vote on it, yeah, it's an expenditure.
What's the actual size of the sign would it be?
These regular,
Standard.
We don't know what
standard.
the expense is actually gonna be though.
For what? Oh, for the other ones, no. For the other ones, we don't know. These are approximately $86. No, well,
Voting to authorize the purchase and placement of the signs, I mean, is that the vote you're looking for?
I suppose, yeah.
the place, I guess, the placement,
Yeah.
because we're asking them
I was wondering about
to.
the other signs, how much they
Yeah.
are, is that what you were asking?
No, just in total, we usually put a number on things.
Right, and not to exceed number, most likely. Do we know an approximate?
$86
Per sign?
per sign.
We don't know because.
We don't know, we just discussed it tonight. I didn't look it up, but my guess is, if you want to go in that
Probably
range,
about the same one,
yes.
but,
Yeah, that's what but I don't think they wouldn't be as big as
So it shouldn't
those.
be as much.
Right, I don't know how they do. It's more of a custom design though. That they could do
Well, but
whatever
I
they
think
want.
we need them anyway.
Well, we're also going to ask the school to pay for these. It's for the school.
That's what I mean, the expenditure on the borough's part, if the school picks it up, that pays for the signs is labor.
Right.
Right, so it's authorizing the installation of signs at school bus stops.
Right.
Right. Okay, I'll make that motion.
I'll second it.
Any questions? All those in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed? All right, I'll take care of that.
Okay.
Good idea.
The next item came to us on Friday afternoon after the agenda had already been posted, advertised, and been finalized. So the Trinity Lutheran Church has started a youth group, in case anyone didn't know this. It's newly formed and it's called Revive Cafe. They'd like to hold a bike safety rodeo on March 26th from 12 noon to 2 p.m. Due to the fact that this could not go on the agenda because it was too late and this is not an emergency item, I spoke to David Bogert and said, could we place this on the April agenda instead? And they'll work on that, but they still wanted to let you know that they are going to come in and ask for a half a block to be closed for the rodeo.
Oh, so
So this right now is just for your information.
okay, so, because it says March 27th.
Right, but it's not
But
on
this is
the,
the communication I got, and I only talked to him this morning. He didn't give me a revised communication.
it's not on the agenda, so we can't vote on it.
Okay? So then the final communication that we received is not in your packet. I apologize because it came in over the weekend. It is from Connor Hollenbach regarding a hockey rink. Did you want to cover that, Michelle?
Sure, because actually, the interesting thing is, I was going to bring this up, so we're gonna combine this email and discussion along with the T-ball field and park property, which is under the borough manager. As you know, the conversation has been happening, and we did talk about this in the January meeting of the list of things to do, of turning the old basketball court on Smith Street into it was originally supposed to be a parking lot for the T-ball field there, and then I said, we could probably let's look into doing this and changing into a hockey rink. I know the kids have been playing there.
Yeah.
I don't know who plays there, I just know that there's often somebody playing hockey there. So, it just, like I said, I was going to talk about this, however, this email came in on Saturday. It says, hello, sorry to bother you. I am contacting you about the lot on West Smith Street, the old basketball court. Me and several other people would love a new place to play hockey instead of going to Long Swamp. I'm reaching out to you to try to get that empty lot turned into a roller rink because it has been sitting there with essentially no purpose for about 2 years. I was wondering if someone could bring this up at a meeting or even email me back because I feel like that would be a good place to keep me busy. It shortens the walk to Long Swamp. Thank you for your time and have a good night. I actually emailed him back and he told me he was surprised. He didn't think anybody was going to answer him or acknowledge his email at all. So that leads me to say, then we'll go to, that's that. He asked that about the hockey rink. We've already had that into our brains, that of turning that basketball court into something of the sort. Now, fast forward on here, the T-ball field and park property. If I'm sure you all know that what it looks like down there with the TASA project, the bridge, and the T-ball field, and it has already been known or been told to us by both baseball and softball they have no intentions of using that field this year. This year we do know that so nothing has to be done this year. They are not using that field and it is not safe. So the T-ball field was put in by us. That was not part of the TASA project or the park project. That was done strictly by the borough. It was, I guess, originally supposed to be a T-ball field, which it would have been small, and then it grew. It wasn't big enough for the use that it was intended. However, somehow or other, it was never considered what the walkway was going to be like, what the bridge was going to be like. And the bridge is right there. It is not safe for, we can't put up any kind of fence there. It is not safe for anybody who walks that way. It is not safe for any kids to play. And I guess softball and baseball never formally said they didn't like this, they weren't doing it. So now they aren't using the field. So it's not going to be used. So what the discussion was, we can move it back, move the T-ball field back to where the T-ball field was. Where the green space, there's nothing being put there. So if there's any kind of questioning as far as green space in the park project, that's what the pool is not going to be there anymore. So that opens that for green space. That's going to be the whole discussion there. So what can be decided, it can't even be decided. The T-ball field, if we have to use it, we talked to Brian and Stacy walked that area. Brian from Barry Isaac, and Stacy walked the area where it was and acknowledged, yes, the T-ball field is going to have to be moved. If we want a T-ball field, it's going back over to where it was. And before it's put down there, all the measurements are going to have to be done to make sure that it's in no way obstructing any of the walkways. So if that's being moved there, there's kind of no reason to have that parking lot there for the T-ball field that was supposed to be. So in my opinion, we're also the cost to make that into a hockey rink is minimal. This is the last year we are getting a $20,000 donation for use for park activities. So I think that's something that that can be considered now. As far as we took the pool away. There's really nothing put in there. They're using it. It's not that it's not safe, but if they want to really play hockey, all that we needed were our walls to put up so that what they're using stays in that area, lines for the place, and goals. That's all that would need for that basketball court to be turned into that. And as far as the T-ball field, it's a big space there, and I have a feeling that there's somebody here to talk about that space too. But we talked about skate park to be put where the pool is, or a pump track or something like that. It just so happens that I was in an area the other day and realized that there's a skateboard park there. This skateboard park is actually in Shoemakersville, which used to be a tennis court. They call it a skateboard park, and I know that when Frank Raitt, who's a resident of Topton, was here that time, he talked about, this is a go-to that people do that. When you look up skate parks when you look them up, they're listed there. Even the dinky little skate parks, which aren't even a park, it's just a little piece of concrete, they're on there, and they do attract people to go there. So that is something, to attract people to Topton. They'll bring business to the restaurants here. It would bring something for the kids to do, because there's actually, the ordinances don't allow skateboards anywhere. So in that little area where the T-ball field is, and if you've also been in Kutztown, it can be as much as 5 different little stations, and it can be as much as it's just a cement circle. Actually, I have some pictures here. So that is something I think that we should consider, because we're going to have to move the T-ball field, and there's going to be just a blank space there. This first 2 pictures are from Kutztown. The other ones are just various things that are stations, for lack of a better word, at Shoemakersville. So this is just a consideration as far as skateboard park. It's just an idea. I just wanted to show you the things that are out there now. There is somebody local who does the concrete work for skate parks. So something to look into, something to think about. I think what we need to consider is the request from a resident who came about the basketball court. I mean, it's something that was in our radar to do, and it's not something that would be any kind of costly activity.
It would probably be cheaper to do that than to put that in the parking. Okay, we thought before.
I don't have a list of I don't have the paper that we had where we had done a questionnaire to the community asking them what they wanted. We should probably look at that. We never really had a discussion. You gave it to us, that Excel spreadsheet. I don't have it with me today, but.
Well, yeah, and as far as that goes, that's for use for the pool area. Yeah, this is something that I said. The T-ball field was done by us. It wasn't done as part of for that area goes. But that is something that would have to be a meeting.
The pool area, you mean?
Yeah, the pool area.
I think all these areas should really be maybe mapped out where you're thinking the T-ball's going to go, so that we can see where everything's going to be, where you'd like to put a pump track area, or.
Yeah, I mean that's what the.
If you could put
that's what the meeting would be that Eric had talked about at the last meeting.
Okay, great.
Yeah, that would have to come up. But as far as, I said, why don't we think about moving on the
$20,000 you mentioned, wasn't that money you were throwing it into maintaining the park?
There's a donation to be used for at our discretion.
In the budget, did you put that $20,000 as maintaining the park, not for, that was for the
It was park in general.
Right, but that was to maintain it though.
I just put it in park donations, because there's only one revenue line item for the park in the budget for 2023.
Okay.
So
Have we been working at all on like a 10-year plan or anything
Okay,
for
so
the borough, for all our land?
back, I'm sure some people in the audience even attended some of the meetings. We know that Eric represented, was it BYBA at the time, the Recreation Board, after a master plan was developed by our engineers at that time, and got input from meetings that were held, and it was mandatory then to recreate or resurrect the Recreation Board. The old Recreation Board used to be like 5 people, 2 council, 2 school, 1 at large, and then DCNR wanted to encourage us to seek funding, so we resurrected that. So in conjunction with the master plan and getting input from the community and the rec board, the master plan was then developed and done step by step. So step by steps were the T-ball field was part, the equipment in the park for kids to play on, the basketball court, the pavilion. One step that was never completed was the band shell, where the old T-ball field at the end of the alley and Home Avenue is. And that is probably not in our budget, and that was never completed, as well as that Little Smith Street parking lot.
So in the plan, there were items that were going to be constructed or installed. Were there designated areas where they were going to be? Okay. So I'm not sure how the T-ball field conflicted with the bridge. Somehow that master plan
That was its
off on that.
designated area where it's at.
But it was never,
They were bringing the Golden Gate Bridge.
right. It was never envisioned.
That was never designed. How would we
I
know?
mean, that bridge is
Well,
all.
who would have thought it was going to be, however, PennDOT project?
Yes, and that was all PennDOT's specifications.
And the T-ball field, because it was done in-house, the engineer gave us a tentative budget to apply for money from ESSA to build it ourselves. Therefore, the engineers didn't have anything to do with the actual design of the actual T-ball field. Our staff took it upon themselves to build it.
The other one about this, that plan did include the pool, and there was a third party that did a study around that. So frankly, at this point in time, because of that change, you're gonna need to go back, because that's a big change to the master plan. So the master plan, in essence, what remains of it needs to be redone, because the key centerpiece of that plan was the pool complex. Unfortunately, when the third party came back with the studies, it was too expensive, and now it's had those problems. But I think the gist here is that master plan needs to be relooked at, because all the remaining stuff, it has gone through let's say, cost benefit, and isn't right now any longer being considered. So that plan needs to be
Would I be correct in saying that plan didn't include skateboard park or pump park or
Right.
hockey or
Right.
anything like
Correct.
that?
Right.
And it had the pool being there, so
Right.
that definitely needs
And the
to be
band
redone.
shell. It had the band shell in there too. Yep.
And did they design that bridge around the T-ball being there? Like that's got that angle, like that it doesn't come out straight? And has-
Well, that's a
That's
separate,
That's why they can't use the T-ball field. If it went straight, it would have been fine.
Is there a reason it had to bend like that? Like why did they?
Handicap accessible.
Exactly.
It was for-
The grade of the accessibility ramp has to be not too steep and not too flat.
Sure.
So they
It
had
had
to
to turn
tweak
at
it.
45 degrees?
Yep.
But it
Well-
didn't have to be there. I mean, it was decided
turn that
to
direction.
put there.
Yeah.
and it's also the way it's designed there is so that the path connects.
It's all about connectivity with the TASA monies.
The bridge things did change a couple times within that plan, so.
They changed a lot
A lot.
as a result of the reviews and permitting that was required by PennDOT. That is not the way they done that originally.
Right.
And we had to have 3 bridges? Couldn't have done 2?
We couldn't take
We
them.
tried. What's done is done.
Yeah.
So that takes up the last communication and the T-ball field and park property discussion.
I'd like to throw out there, some people have mentioned to me, many people mentioned to me they would like a skateboard park, so I'm happy to hear you mention that. I think the area we're talking now about hockey, that's of course another team sport, not an individual sport. I believe tenants, people had real estate and they were aware of drug dealings that went on years back, they're talking years back.
Supposed.
Asphalt, yeah, and so I think that got closed down for that reason, whatever. So one resident mentioned to me, wherever you put the skateboarding, be sure there's electricity for lighting. I thought, well, that's a good idea.
There are lights there.
There's lights on there.
Okay, good. And then the other thing was, it was mentioned, the half pipe that you were mentioning, Michelle, and you had the photo, that the pool is sort of a built-in half pipe in one area, already constructed. It's kind of nice that the police are gonna be coming in at that end of our building. And there's electricity for lights, for using the area where, some portion of the area where the pool is now, as a skateboard park. I think there's a number of pluses for that.
But doesn't the pool have to be broken up?
It's a lot more expensive putting it in there, out here, than at the T-ball field.
Why?
Yeah.
Because we've got to demolish this pool.
But do we? So,
It sounds like that's a big discussion for the
yeah,
time.
yeah.
Agreed.
Everybody okay to move on?
Yep.
Mayor's report.
It was my first one, so I went to 2 events at the end of February. Both seemed very well attended by the community, which was a great sight. The first one was a Topton Community Outreach Club did a sausage sandwich sale to benefit one of their members that is dealing with some health issues. So I believe they sold out all their sausage sandwiches in, I think they told me about like 45 minutes to an hour. I just made it in. I thought I had plenty of time. Did not. And then Sunday I went to the Topton Fire Company, had a breakfast. It was packed. It was good. So it was good to see all the community members out there at both events. That's what I got.
Thank you. Police report.
Hi. Alrighty, for last month, for February, we had 899 patrol miles, 93 patrol hours, 13 initial report investigations, which took 6 hours, 0 crash investigations, which is good. 18 traffic citations were issued, 2 non-traffic criminal citations were issued, 21 hours of traffic checks, 4 hours of paperwork, 32 vehicle stops, 3 hours, our detectives spent 3 hours doing follow-up criminal work, and we did not have any court hours last month. On a side note, one part-time officer, Officer Catadella, is back from military leave. He works part-time, so he'll be worked back into rotation part-time. Equipment, we were able to obtain $1,900 of funding through the Kyle Paralegal Memorial Fund for the purchase of a new ballistic shield. And we applied for grant money of $3,000 with AAA for new alcohol sensors for our vehicles, which are really important, and the current ones we have are pretty old and worn. Some of them don't even work anymore, so it's a nice tool to have out there. Other than that, does anyone have any questions of any particular issues or investigations or anything that they like? Yes?
I heard we've had our first catalytic converter thefts here recently.
Yes, and that is a problem nationwide, and you think you'd be able to nip it in the bud with the people who are accepting these metals, because they're supposed to track it and the state's supposed to audit it, but they get a lot of money because in the catalytic converters and even some of the mufflers, the metals inside them are worth a lot of money, so they take a battery-operated sawzall and a jack, use wooden blocks, they jack it up and they can saw a catalytic converter off in minutes. We had several places hit along 222 in Richmond Townships and businesses at a camper place. I believe they hit, I think, 20-some high-end campers, like $50,000 worth, around between 1 o'clock and 5 o'clock in the morning. And it's hard to be everywhere at once. And so we recommend lighting, outdoor lighting, and cameras. Cameras are more affordable for businesses and for homeowners now. We do solve a lot of crimes with cameras as well. So, and just the neighbor tips. If you see something what doesn't look right or doesn't seem right, call, we'll check it out. If we're on duty, I'm sure the state police would do the same, because that one little tip can end up solving 15 crimes.
Are you seeing more like hit and run, like they hit this town and then they don't come back, or do they keep coming back to the same place?
There's some of the 222 corridor, there's some ring gangs or rings that have been associated with those. So whether they would have came in this far, I don't know. If there was multiple steps, I would think maybe it's associated, but this might be a road incident where someone who might be looking for drug money or whatever is trying to get one or two where they can get $50, $100 for. And some of these catalytic converters cost close to $1,000 depending on what car it is. So it's a problem. I assume in the next few years, manufacturers are going to probably be doing something to make it tougher for them to be stolen. It's one of the things, the easy money and most of the time it's used for drug money or something.
And on a side note, we did go through our camera footage to see if we could see anything for that. And
Unfortunately, it's, some of them don't even use flashlights, and they're out there and they'll park half a block away and carry an aluminum floor jack, and they don't need a cord. They use the battery operated sawzalls, and it only takes a few minutes. In a couple blocks of wood for at least one side of the vehicle, and depending on what vehicle it is, they don't even need the blocks. If it's a 4x4 or something like that. So if you see someone out at night, not from the neighborhood, or you just see something, just think something strange, just call, because like I said, that one tip can solve many crimes.
Could you share with us the nature of the 2 criminal citations?
I don't have that noted here. Non-traffic citations are generally summary offenses, but criminal summary offenses, fine, usually $50 to $300. It could be anything from an underage drinking to harassment. Someone who strikes, shoves, pushes another person. So, you know, it's not a serious criminal offense. It's not a misdemeanor or felony, but a summary non-traffic, usually a fine.
Thank you.
Sure. Any other comments or questions about anything you'd like us to address or anything? And I didn't say, but we generally have a lot of parking violations in Topton, more than Fleetwood or Richmond Township or Ruskin. So we try to address them.
What type of parking violation?
Parking ordinance violation. Let's say even if it's an expired
The wrong side of the
registration,
street, or parking too far from a curb?
expired registration or inspection,
Okay.
or not parked, safe areas. So we get a fair amount of them. And we try to address them pretty quick, and 90% of the people pay their ordinance fine, and then another 10% goes to a citation, a state citation, which is more expensive. And then if they don't pay that, they can get a warrant and also have their registration or driver's license suspended.
Do you ever give out warnings on that?
On parking violations? Generally speaking, if it's brought to our attention about a parking and it violates the ordinance, we're going to issue a parking ticket, a Topton parking ticket. Sometimes if we see something, we could possibly give a warning. But we do give, if it's a vehicle that's been parked there and someone said it's been sitting there for several weeks not moved and it's expired registration or inspection, we'll put a orange sticker on the window. We'll give it at least 7 to 10 days for them to remove the vehicle, or we'll have it towed. So not too many get towed.
thank you, Tom.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Visitors, everybody signed in? Anybody have anything to address?
I do, but I'll reserve it, if I may, until the proper topic is addressed.
Okay, that's fine. Anyone else?
Yeah, I just showed up to say touch base or bring up about the pump track, skate, stuff like that, just so that we could have a designated area, but I think you guys hit it pretty good. And I think you hit it pretty good that every parking lot around here that a lot of people think that we can use, people do use them, but there is signage there that says no bikes, no skateboards, no scooters, stuff like that. So, yeah, it's just really why I came. I guess I could have emailed you like they did for the hockey rink, but I figured show face.
Yep.
That's
Thank you.
just mainly.
Thank you.
Are there many people you're familiar with in town personally who love skateboarding if we had a place?
Yeah, more, I mean, just people I'm familiar with, more so bicycles and stuff. There's quite a few people that do travel over. There's a pump track over at Emmaus, which is called Camp Olympic, right off Route 29. And over there, it's people from like dads my age to young kids that can't pedal, that are on little balance bikes. And actually over there, we do meet a crew of older gentlemen that come in from the Fleetwood area. Actually what they do is they're on the, say that there's actual, I won't say it's a professional, but there's an actual BMX racing track that's down in Quakertown. And they'll use the paved pump track over at Camp Olympic as their practice area. We were actually over there the other 2 weekends ago, and there was a bunch of older gentlemen, and they were kind of just doing time things, just as a fun time, and they let the kids mix right in with them. So I mean, it's not that it's just for kids. I think it would get older people as well. I mean, once you see it's there, and I mean the fun that can be had. And I know there's concern about vandalism and stuff, but it kind of regulates itself. And I know people can't be there 24 hours, but as people are there, families are there, I mean, they speak up for themselves and things are going on.
The one you go to in Emmaus, is that paved or dirt?
It used to be dirt years ago, but they did pave it recently in like the last 2 years or so, something like that.
It's Lower Mackenzie's Park. They just done quite a bit of work to bring that. It used to be a camp by the name, and they have done quite a bit of work. It's a nice park. It'd be worth going and seeing, and I can put you in touch with the park person there if you want to talk to them.
Was it hard for them to maintain, or what happens when it rains on the dirt pump track?
I mean, and I think maybe that's why they pushed to get it paved, just to say a little bit easier to maintain. I know when it was dirt, it wasn't, I mean, yeah, it would puddle up and stuff in low-lying areas, but just how they have it graded and stuff like that, it kind of cleans itself up. And I think they have, say, native plants and stuff, like in the low areas, that's not just all overgrown weed and stuff, it's kind of flowering plants and stuff. And yeah, I mean, I could say that if you did have something like that, it would probably require some maintenance, but with regular rounds that guys do on the borough property, I wouldn't think it would be, I mean, too much out of their range of work to do a little bit of maintenance around that. But,
Thank you for coming tonight.
yeah, thank
I would
you.
love for you to be part of the conversation with our recreational department.
Yeah.
Maybe if you could get some of the others in town that are.
Yeah, I know
into that.
there's definitely 3 or 4 of us. I mean, over the last 2 or 3 years, we've been talking about it real heavy about how it'd be nice to get something together. So I mean, if we need to, I'm positive that we could have, we could get a little committee together, like for whatever you might want to call it, if you want to have it be a skate park where you got ramps and stuff, or if you want to have it be an actual pump track like that. Yeah, I'm sure we could get quite a few people involved to help like form a committee or something. And like even fundraising, I know we don't expect to be handed stuff, but I'm quite sure we could fundraise to bring some money in that here's this, if you help us, we can help you. Sort of thing.
Please make sure we have your contact information.
Yeah,
Thank you.
yeah, good sign in.
Thanks, Kyle.
I will say, I looked it up because I didn't know what a pump track was. I saw the one in Emmaus, so I drove out there, probably the same weekend. It was pretty nice. There was an older gentleman there. He tells me he drives an hour from the other side of Phoenixville up to there every weekend.
Yeah, I actually met some people they drove in from New Jersey one weekend that we were over there.
Because they have that park right, like the actual little park is real close to it, so he said his wife and kid play on the park while he rides on the pump track.
Correct.
So he told me he's there every weekend, it's nice, so he's
Yeah.
willing to drive an hour to get there.
Yeah, it's one of those things that's an up and coming thing. I mean, as you know, not many towns around here have it, but they're kind of spaced out sporadically. So yeah, people do travel to attend them. And like I don't remember who said it, but about bringing people into town, people that might use your restaurants and stuff for lunch or go to the gas get drinks and stuff like that. I think would definitely bring some people into the area.
And actually, do you know Skate from DECA?
Yes.
That is where I had a conversation
Sean.
with him. I had a conversation with him about
Yeah, because he's big into donating skateboards and stuff like that. Yeah, I know Sean real well.
All right. Anybody else? Joan.
Okay, first is the status of the MOU feasibility studies with Long Swamp Township. Long Swamp's solicitor and I have been in touch. What the township wants is to modify the Freehall and Woodside agreements before the discussions of an MOU for the secondary well. I received from their solicitor a proposal with using the Freehall agreement as a template to modify that agreement, some of which I agree with, some of which I disagree with. I had sent to you earlier today a list of comments on the proposed agreement, some with which I agree, some with which I disagree. There's one comment in particular making all of the individuals receiving service through the borough third-party beneficiaries of an agreement. I don't want to see that. That makes us subject to multiple suits, so I don't think that's a great idea. However, there are some which are simply cleaning up some items. For example, assigning maintenance agreements, maintenance responsibilities of the township to the borough. That, in effect, happened with the settlement agreement several years ago when the litigation was settled and the lines were given to the borough that are in the township. So that makes sense. What paragraph 11 has is what I think is the substance of the agreement, and that is what I'll call similar to a cooling off period that you have in labor agreements. In this case, it's 90 days notice, 180 days to negotiate in good faith, and then if that doesn't work out, then it goes to an arbitration. The Berks County Bar Association has an arbitration program that it uses for alternative dispute resolution or a similar program. Main thing is not to get into AAA arbitration because of the expense. Bar Association program does not have a high associated expense. That would not be a binding. Arbitration or actually mediation. It would not be arbitration. Mediation would not be binding. Could be appealed to court, but service would not be able to be terminated without either a court order or an agreement of the parties. That's something that we need to think about as to whether we want to commit to that or not. Again, I'd like you to take the opportunity to review the proposed changes to the Freehall agreement. Freehall agreement and the Woodside agreement are fairly similar, so assume that there would be parallel changes. And I think, Stacy, I think you sent over the Freehall and Woodside agreements in addition to.
Mm-hmm. Not today. Previously, but not today.
Okay, so everybody has them. If you don't have them, email me. I can get them. I can get the agreements to you. The Freehall and Woodside agreements were done in the 1980s. They do need. There's no question they need some updating. As we've discussed in the past, there have been changes in the law, and practice is different these days than it was at that time.
They're also only good for.
Right, they also have a termination date, and right now we have in place the proposed termination of of both agreements. That is still in place. I mean, it's on hold for now, but it's still in place.
I'm a little confused why there, I don't mean to be a wrench in the wheels here, because I want to get this going forward. But the whole point of the memorandum of understanding was that if you let us look for a well, then we're going to play nice about free haul, and they're kind of leapfrogging that.
They're making that.
Technically, we'd be renegotiating this contract, but we'd still have in place something saying
Right,
we cancel
and
these contracts.
I can go back and say, we're not, I can go back and say, we're not changing anything in any agreements until we get a signed MOU. And we can have in the MOU, because the MOU is an agreement to negotiate.
Yeah.
We can have in the MOU that we will contemporaneously consider changes to the amendments to the Freehold and Woodside agreement.
I thought that was the general understanding, which is why I was confused. This is taking so long to put together something, just saying like, hey, if you play nice, we'll play nice. But I don't feel comfortable just jumping across that and being like, oh, well, we'll give you this first, and then we'll talk about it.
Right, and we can, that's the thing about this. It's a negotiation. We can certainly say no, but I just have to pass it along to you.
I understand.
So,
Did they prepare this document?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
I read some of your notes to Stacy in the email. I didn't particularly have any argument with what they were proposing, you know what I mean? But
this is not what.
This is not the time,
Right,
and get the well going, not meet their needs.
My feeling is that they should be done, it's like the MOU should refer to both the study for the secondary well and negotiations on Freehold and Woodside and.
Yeah, I'm fine with that, because that's what we all talked about when we all got together.
And I'm glad to take that back. I'm glad to take that back to Long Swamp Solicitor. They're meeting tomorrow night anyway. So I'm fine with taking that back to them.
I mean, we don't even know if a well's going to be possible on the fire company property.
And they're like forgetting about that and just more concerned with this.
Right, they are more concerned with that, but.
Well, that makes sense to me, that they would be.
Right. I mean, there's mutual interest and frankly mutual assured destruction here.
Right.
But the well would be a benefit to them also.
It would be.
True, but.
It would be, but having the intergovernmental agreement stay in place is.
I know that Freehold and Woodside are technically outside of the borough, but they're our neighbors. They've been on the water system before, so kicking them all off is, I consider that
Nobody-
mutual
we made the
destruction to
threat,
us
yeah.
too.
Our council made the threat. So, I mean,
So now, I mean, let's, we can find a path forward out of this.
Yeah.
I mean, we were all under the understanding that we would have to do something with those two agreements before we actually built a well anyway.
Right.
This was just so we could do the testing to find out we could.
And,
Yeah.
and I think that what we do is just counter-propose, add a paragraph amending the Freehold and Woodside agreements.
I mean, I don't even think it's a bad idea if you guys are working on amending those agreements, working out the language, working out those things that this continuously, you know what I mean? But I'm not signing anything.
We actually started out, they did have something in there that we were going to, originally when we asked to do this, they did have that verbiage in there that we were going to revisit those along with letting us, just let us see if this is even something that's feasible.
Yeah. So.
And then it changed.
Yeah, what I'll do is I'll go back saying, we're not going to agree to this amendment language. We want the MOU in place in order to both go forward with the study and discuss the agreements.
Yeah.
Is that the?
Yes. We need to know if it's reasonable to do a well there. That's the very first thing, and none of this rest of this stuff. Because once we find out if, it does turn out to be a great source of water for us, then we have to look at expenses and who's going to pay what, and all that has to be negotiated. Maybe we won't even get past that part either.
Right.
So there's two things here, and I don't see changing existing agreements. Just putting the cart before the horse.
Yeah, I'm glad to go back with that. That's fine.
I didn't think we were asking them to pay for.
No, that was in part of the whole original thing that we, And I don't know what happened.
Yeah. Part of, we don't know what happened with.
Oh, that's like, they forgot about what we were asking for. That we
Yeah.
said that, we would pay for all of that. Just let us
We
do
agree
it.
that, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. But again, I think they're looking for something, we're looking for something, but I think that it belongs in the MOU, not negotiating these agreements first.
Correct.
All right, any further questions about the agreement? All right,
I have
next.
a sideline overlapping. Well, number one, that I got secondhand somehow, our licensing expired. If it was with change of management or nobody, I don't know that anybody knows how it happened. So we can't use it anymore. Do you have any idea what would be involved in trying to use that again?
So it's number 5.
5. It's 5.
The one right after-
We are in the process of doing
And
that.
I'm working with DEP, they're doing some record search at this current time. The problem is it does not meet sanitary separation, and because as long as it had an open permit on it, it was grandfathered in. The day the permit expired, to re-up anything like that, just like if somebody did a development here and the permission's expired and they're bringing it back, all the conditions now apply again. So that's the problem, is all DEP's rules and regulations apply to it to get in a new permit, and it's too close to the road. Flat out, it's too close to the road to be permitted now. That's why it was denied. I'm trying, but that's the hurdle we've got to overcome, is it does not meet the sanitary separation distances that are required of a well.
Yeah, and that did not occur under your watch, by the way.
And it didn't lapse. It didn't just lapse.
We took it offline. There was turbidity.
It was bad quality, and so it was moved offline.
Okay.
So it wasn't just forgotten about, it was intentionally
Correct.
taken out of service for that. It was used for emergencies and those type of things. So if we bring it back and it's still got a quality issue, we got to deal with the quality issue. So use of it is a multi-step process. One, it has to be permittable. We were at that stage of bringing it back, and because it wasn't permittable, we didn't go any further. And so what we have to get to even think of using it is DEP has to agree that they will waive that requirement.
Is there such a thing ever that it could be used only to fill fire tanker trucks?
Oh, yeah, we use it now.
For non-potable, yeah.
Yeah, we use it for non-potable water,
Okay.
but it doesn't, that gives you, and I think you can use that now for that regardless, and you do.
Okay.
The problem is it's not a backup well for the system at all, and that's what we were looking for. It's used a lot. It used to be used quite a bit. Didn't we fill the pool?
Yeah.
So it got used, it just wasn't potable water use. Yeah.
Thank you.
And the other matter is the snow emergency ordinance. You're looking to amend the ordinance to include Center Avenue?
That's the only thing. Center Avenue is posted as a snow emergency, and it's not contained anywhere.
All right, well, what we would need to do then is just a simple amendment ordinance, and you'd authorize me to prepare and advertise it.
Make that motion.
We posted it without it.
It's somehow nowhere
Just-
That's
listed.
how
Where to be
Yeah.
on an ordinance.
That's how everything in the town is. Just put the signs up and don't do any of the work,
Are there any other changes we need to this?
Yeah, I mean, you'd have to ratify the location of the sign. You're talking about adding other roads?
No, just Center Avenue.
Okay.
They're ready to- Go
If
ahead.
people don't have snow tires with the acceptable design and tread, and people don't have chains, and they live on, I don't know, East Smith Street, and they need to drive somewhere, they're not allowed to if there's 4 inches or more of snow, or
What?
so they need to leave town, I can say it right. They need to leave town, so they're gonna have to go on one of our snow emergency roads, but they don't happen to have chains or the acceptable snow tires.
They just can't park there in a snow emergency.
That's what. Yeah.
Can't park there, and
That's what the snow emergency routes are for.
It's not a
No
right-
parking.
No parking, no parking.
No parking, but it also says no person operating a motor vehicle in a snow emergency route on which there's a covering of snow, sleet, or ice shall let that vehicle be installed wholly or partly because its drive wheels are not equipped with tire chains or snow tires providing effective traction, because the motor fuel supply has been exhausted, or because the battery has become inoperative. In other words, you can travel, but don't get stuck.
Yeah.
Right.
This is saying you can only travel if you have chains or you
Right.
have, and that's.
No, it's saying that you could be fine, basically.
You can be fine if you get stuck.
If you get stuck because you didn't have chains or
So you
something.
get stuck for any of those.
No,
Yeah.
Well,
no, I
You
don't
don't have to
want
have
People
them.
driving on the street,
That doesn't mean what, not here.
they
No,
have
but-
all-wheel drive, so should we put that in there?
I don't think it needs to work around. I don't think anybody's stopping anybody looking at tires.
To keep those roads open so that you know if you get stuck, you're gonna get
You're gonna get in trouble.
because you're not leaving the road open.
Mm-hmm.
For emergency vehicles.
For the purpose
That's
of
the
intended.
intention, stay off the roads.
We do have a motion and a second.
We don't have a second, I did not.
Monica did.
Oh, I'm sorry, Monica, thank you.
So the snow emergency goes into effect when the mayor declares it,
Right.
and there's the parking prohibition. Any part of the snow emergency route on which there has been an accumulation of snow and or ice of 4 inches or more. So that's subparagraph B, and C is once in effect. I just didn't understand if C is only about parking or is also about driving. On page 4.
What are the signs?
Yeah, no, that is,
Yeah.
I think it just says no emergency route. It's like-
Vehicles cannot be parked.
Yeah, or something like that, yeah, whatever generic sign it is.
yeah, this is declaration of snow emergency, so anything that's prohibited under the snow emergency ordinance is prohibited until the snow emergency is lifted or the block is cleared. Like you can park, once the block is cleared curb to curb, you can park on that block again.
Anything else?
That's all I have unless anybody has any questions.
We still need a vote.
Yep, because that's what I was making sure that there were no other questions. Everybody was clear. All those in favor? Anyone opposed? Okay, that's just adding Center Avenue to that. The signs are already displayed on the street. And you said you're finished, so it's Borough Manager.
Well, we've already discussed my first item, T-ball field and park property discussion. I would just ask that if you need help with getting the meeting scheduled with the community, just reach out and, well, get that ball going. In your packet, you have, it's not very readable, and I couldn't get around that because the vendor that presented the 120 Water is the name of the company. The proposal for us to get their help in the initial steps of communicating with our residents, the property owners, who may have service lines that are not compliant with the new order by DEP that was passed on to them by EPA for copper and lead piping. So, sitting down with them, they got us a proposal. Scott is under the understanding that he has a certain number that he's unsure about. So that's how we'll target these 300, 400, 500, whatever that number ends up being, by communicating with them in certain ways. They'll do that for us. So that's the big ask.
So this is $5,500 for this, is it a software program?
No, it's a service.
It's a service.
They will do the legwork, they will put it in their software, they will incorporate the answers to questions that they'll get from these property owners in Topton. Whether it includes just a postcard, whatever we want.
Does this satisfy?
Oh, no, this is just the gathering of the information.
I did go and meet with DP. They did a training session at the Norristown office. It was put on by the central staff, and they were a lot more professional than apparently the ones at the operators conference were. What is the things that are due in October or September of '24? The big thing is an inventory of all your service lines. You have to have the inventory. In that inventory, some of the lines can be marked as unknown. The other things you have to have done at the same time is you have to have a plan for how you're going to figure out those unknowns, and a plan for how you're going to seek the remediation of it's actually lead and galvanized pipe.
Sorry.
Under certain conditions. It's basically if there's a lead pipe in the way. So if there's lead in the component anywhere, how you're going to deal with that's your plan. You don't have to have any of them remediated. You don't have to have them all identified. The first step is the inventory and a bunch of research. One of the options for doing determination is to have the homeowners in areas you don't know but suspect to take a swab, and I think and they take it to the pipe, and if it changes color, that means it's a lead service line. And that means you're not going in the houses and doing it. Your guys don't have to find that. So that's they're going to get you the documentation that you will need to back it up with DEP that says, hey, we've now reached this conclusion.
Yeah.
And that's...
I guess I was reaching a little bit with $5,500 taking care of the whole thing.
No, it's just the subset, because I'm assuming Scott thinks he has the records for the rest.
Right.
And if they're built after a certain date, you don't have to have anything other than those built after this date.
And we have an ordinance that says if it's built after 1950 something.
Yeah.
We found that ordinance that says you have to have copper.
Right.
So at least we're narrowing down the unknowns. And that's key because DEP then says, okay, you report your unknowns, you report your inventory of knowns. If you hit a certain percentage, then your timeline shortens for remediation.
Yep.
If we can narrow down this to a manageable, smaller amount that benefits us in the long run, where we're not under the gun to go and test their water at these unknowns or remediate service lines within, all the notifications that have to go to the property owners within 30 days of the
How many
inventory.
notifications have to be sent out?
Pardon?
How many notifications have to get sent out to a property owner? Just one, or,
So there's several. So in this case, there's one that you're trying to get them to do something and give you information back. Depending on the number of people that respond to that, you may want to do a second. It's a statistical game.
okay.
So if you know this whole block was built at the same time, maybe the same builder, and you get half of the people to respond and they're all negative, you may be okay. DEP has gone through, so you'll have to talk with the DEP folks and get that approved. So you're looking for that kind of, but anyone who tests it, you've got a definitive piece of information. The challenge is if you think this block is all the same and you only get 2 people back and they test positive for lead, you're going to have to assume they're all lead. The biggest challenge is DEP has not written their regulations yet, and they're not going to get them written in time for the 24 days. So right now, everything's being done off of EPA's rules. There's no implementation. Like, the implementation plan isn't actually set yet. That's the problem.
So this is a property notification system that they're using to notify our property owners?
You will have them do it.
It's like a mass marketing postcard, basically.
Yeah.
All right, so they're paying postage and printing for postcards and keeping track of all the people? and-
Yeah, so their initial steps are to look at Topton. okay? We have
I
927.
just want to know what we're paying
That's okay.
$500 for, I guess.
That's okay. We whittle that down for them by knowing, here's 600 that we already know. So we look at the other 325. They go and do record searches at the courthouses for us to say, okay, these were built in this, so they're exempt. They're not lead or galvanized because it was already banned. You know, so they'll go through all those initial steps for them to even whittle it down, and then they'll do the whatever we choose, postcard, test kit, whatever. And then they'll track all of those results, and then hopefully whittle down to a manageable number that we have to go and test.
Yeah, when we issue that report to DEP, you will have 30 days after you issue the report to DEP to let any user on your system know that you either don't know or it is lead. So if it's identified as unknown or needs remediation, you have 30 days to let them know that that's the case. And if it's their line, they have to handle it. If it's your part of the line, you have to handle it. There is money available for you to do both sections of line. If that's, so places where fixed income, low income, I use the cities of Reading and Allentown, are going to be doing most likely both parts of the line under those grant funding, so because people can't afford to do it.
So the reason why we approached this company is because Scott reached out to other municipalities, and one of them nearby is using this, and they have way more users than we do, and it's working out well for them. They've already signed with them and started working with them to be proactive and start the process.
So is this estimate based on our population?
Correct.
I personally don't look at it, the money goes to saving our guys' time.
Yeah, we don't have
We don't have
the manpower.
Because every time they come back with something else that they've been told they have to do now, I'm like, well, now let's scratch off that thing we were gonna do, scratch off that thing we were gonna do. You know, I mean, we spoke about keeping a lot of these projects in-house, and like, that's just a dream if, you know, we have to keep doing all of this, so.
So we need,
Need a motion?
yep.
I'll make a motion.
And how would the motion be that you would like?
To hire these people.
You know, authorizing, you have a proposal there, authorizing
accept it.
accepting.
To accept the proposal.
Okay.
Proposal, yeah.
I'll second.
Any more questions? All those in favor? Anyone opposed? There you go.
Okay, thank you. And we'll come back to council as we progress with it, because this is an important project. The next item I have is, after reviewing the residential water sewer service policy, we also got into a discussion recently because we've been approached by several landlords, property owners, or we've had circumstances and communications with property owners and management companies lately. Some concerns are that we are spending a lot of staff time in catering to property owners who are in business. They are a business. We serve them as equally as we do a resident, but it seems that they want us sometimes to collect their money for them. It's been our policy to leave it up to the property owner who to put the bill for water sewer services in. Should it be my tenant, or should I collect all their money because that's my job as a property owner? So it depends on their lease, and that's a private matter. Some municipalities say, sorry, it has to, across the board, it has to be in the property owner's name. So I think council really does need to think about this. Legally, just staff time issues. If you could think about that before I bring back the policy we'd appreciate that in the office. Don't want to make property owners mad in Topton, but there are more rentals now than probably ever have been in Topton. I think that's just the new reality.
I'll say, I know that the properties I managed in Kutztown, the property is always treated as a commercial entity. You know, so if there's a tenant, water, sewer goes into the tenant's name, they get a residential rate. If there is no tenant, though, during vacancy periods, that goes back into the owner's name and it becomes a commercial rate again. We urged all of our tenants to get on it quick because we're going to charge them one way or the other. You know, if we're paying their bill, we'll keep your lights on, but they charge us almost double what they charge a residential rate. So right now, we don't do that. We charge every residential property as a residential property. So I think that needs to change as well. That the rate needs to be applied as a commercial rate if it's a commercial holding.
So that's
There are
something,
some communities that actually, like other utilities, you know, we have people that rent property and the owner of the property is always held accountable for, just like a tax bill. You know, they have a water bill, and if the water bill doesn't get paid by the tenant, the owner is responsible for the bill. There are some communities, and the reason we collect the money from the property owners, because it's real easy to be, it's a lienable service, right? So it's easier for us to collect the money by holding their property hostage through a legal action if they don't pay their bills. But there are some communities and some cities that actually, like an electric company, when someone signs up for service, they hold a deposit, and that way if they don't pay their bill, you can shut them down and you can use that deposit. And in that type of a situation, it's in whoever requests service. So we have a tenant that moves into an apartment, and that tenant calls just like they call the electric company, and they say, I would like to start water and sewer service to my property. And you say, okay, there's a deposit of X amount of dollars, and basically when you're a tenant in good standing and you pay your bills, then just like an electric company does. And that way if they don't pay, we shut it down. So I'm just saying that there are communities that don't go after the property, and they go by the user of the service.
Well, that's how it would work generally in Kutztown as well, unless the tenant moves out.
Right, yeah, and then you
When
have
the
the auto
property is
switch.
vacated,
It's
simply-
an auto switch right to the owner.
Yeah, it goes right back to
Sure,
the
and
owner.
there's a paper that
So yeah, our tenants would certainly,
for gas.
if they didn't pay their bill, the
Electric.
borough would come out and shut off their service because they didn't pay their, you know, and there would be no penalty on
Right.
the landowner itself.
I'm just saying that, we're looking for going after the property owner because it's easy, but.
Well, I think it's appropriate.
It is appropriate,
I
yes.
think it is. The property owner is ultimately responsible for the bill. Now, the only thing to be aware of is when you have a landlord payer is the Utility Service Tenant Rights Act, and that is if the landlord defaults on the bill, you have to give the tenants the ability to pay the bill. You have certain notice requirements apply, but those notice requirements are actually already in your ordinance.
But to answer your direct question, no, you should not be doing the landlord's work for them. So anyone who comes in to pay a bill and doesn't have an account in their name, tell them to take it to whoever pays the account.
It has been often that there are.
That's not acceptable at all.
Yeah, okay, no, I received a call.
How many people are you seeing per billing cycle that you have to manage the?
every billing cycle, when we see that tenants are about to get late notices, the landlords get the late notices as well. That's part of what we do. Same with shutoffs. So we actually have, in the last couple quarters, called landlords or emailed landlords to say your tenant is about to get their water and sewer shut off.
Do you have?
So look at that time element that's
Is there any way you
spent.
can just stamp and mail out the notices?
We did at the late notices. They got a copy of every late notice for all their tenants if they were late.
Okay.
So they have a paper trail, and then they have another paper trail of either an email or a telephone call
I
from us.
wouldn't do that.
I wouldn't do phone calls and emails, just to mail it to them and.
But that's 48 hours.
Yeah, the shut-off one is.
And the mail, I'm sorry to say, no mail carrier can, and we can't get a letter out of a 48-hour notice and it be mailed to the landlord within 48 hours. That's not going to happen unless we hand deliver things to landlords that aren't even having a business in Topton.
Yes.
So that's not feasible. So that's why we call or email, because we have contact information for all the property
Do you legally
owners.
have to alert?
No, we don't, but we don't want to shut anybody's water off either.
Well, no, but, you know,
Yeah, so that's a courtesy that we've been doing, but,
Giving the tenant enough notice, you know what I mean? I don't wanna see anybody's water get shut off either, but you gotta pay the bill, so.
yep.
And the landlord doesn't, you know, I mean,
If the landlord chooses to have a tenant who's like this, then that's their problem.
But then they come into the office and expect the borough to handle and collect.
See,
There's
Yeah.
been 2 or 3 that wanted to come to threatened to come to meetings because they wanted the borough to be their collection agency.
Right, they want the borough to do their work of constructively evicting the tenant.
Yeah.
Okay, so I'll take this feedback and,
I have them come to the meeting,
oh, they,
The landlord.
I would
we,
love to have the landlord come to the meeting.
sure, some
Right,
have
we did
said they're
say-
going to show.
And they don't, but they.
Yeah,
but
and
they
one
come
was
into
even on the
office.
agenda
Yeah.
last time, so,
I'm just saying, I mean, they should be shut down from wasting your time. That's awful. You have to deal with that.
and this has been years of this, so.
Well, years ago.
I mean, yeah, I'll say, if it's been going on that long, it's gonna be hard to get through people.
Well, years ago, the landlord would get, $3,000 bill because we would never shut anybody down. That was a problem in our office. You guys are on top of it now, so that's different.
Is it worrying that something that would require landlords in some instances to renegotiate leases or?
That's up to them.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Right, that is
should not be-
If they have to, then that's their fault for not having a strong lease to begin with.
Yeah, that's a matter of private contract, and the borough does not get involved in private
No, I didn't
contracts.
read through it, I didn't know.
Yeah.
Yep. Okay, thank you very much for your feedback. And then a general report on sort of everything else. Everyone has seen the progress with the TASA project. Bridges are in, not completed, because PennDOT has specific limits on time that you can pour concrete, pour or lay asphalt, and temperatures. So it's time and temperatures we're battling with right now. You'd think that it would be easy because it's warmer, but it's not warm enough still. So the ramps to some of the bridges are done. They're able to do some of the curbing and sidewalk again, but the deck of each bridge cannot be laid, for a little while. Hopefully, we do have an extension through mid-June, but hopefully it will not take that long to get everything done and inspected and finalized. So that is progressing. Just so everyone knows, the bridges are made of a metal that has a rust quality to it. That is a protectant. It rubs off when you touch it, so the accessible bridge especially has aluminum handrails, so you don't touch this. So that's a maintenance issue. So that was on purpose, designed that way for our staff not to have to paint them regularly, year in, year out, all 3 bridges. So if you see anyone complaining or wondering, why aren't they being painted? That's why, because underneath, trying to paint underneath then, once you paint, you gotta paint. You ruined what the quality is of that metal. So it's underneath, all protected. So that's why they are what they are, and they look a little industrial. Okay? Randy Sicker, who was successful in passing all of his water certification exams and got those licenses, now has been approved. You don't automatically get a permit or a license from DEP, but he did achieve that, so we received that recently. As council knows, we had 2 breaks on Keller Street with the water service lines that had to be serviced immediately. We got a outside contractor in to come and help us. So hopefully in the near future to finish that entire project. We will be getting grant funding, but we're still waiting to hear on that. The water plant is going to be inspected for its filter plant performance evaluation soon. So that's one of those inspections that DEP comes and takes a look at everything with a microscope, really. So wish us luck with that. I'm sure we're going to be fine. As a lot of people have seen, if you're on Haas Street, UGI is doing major renovations that I spoke about in the last few months. They have started Haas. From there, they're going to include Penn and Franklin, and then go back to Home, which was supposed to be done in November, but was delayed due to scheduling, I believe. So look for new traffic patterns, but with Haas, there are no complete closures of the street for DECA tractor trailers, emergency vehicles, large vehicles, rerouting of smaller vehicles. So pass that word to your community members. We did have an evaluation of our cybersecurity by our IT firm that we spoke about, and it came out a lot better than I expected, especially with the sewer and water staff needing to get in on time, off nights, weekends, in order to check out the system, especially if it's an alarm. So we'll attend to the items that do need attending to, which are very minor. Any questions? No, thank you, that's all I have.
Thanks, Stacy. Okay, committee reports. I'm first, and I did send an email out saying that we did interview and had applications for the borough secretary, and we would discuss tonight what the next step will be. And I'm going to leave this conversation to continue with Stacy, since Stacy is the one who would be managing this employee, and she knows what the employee needs to show and have, and what would be necessary for the office to be able to work with another employee.
Thanks. What we found in placing the ad on Indeed, on our message board, on Facebook, on our website, is that people are applying, which is great. But my bottom line, they don't have to have any degree at all, but they have to know how to spell, they have to know how to sentence structure a paragraph, because they're doing your minutes. They're doing your agenda. And I'm not even seeing that in resumes that I receive. So that's the first introduction to a person that I receive. And if there's a typo in someone's resume, I'm sorry, I don't trust them with your minutes that are going to be a record forever and ever. So that leaves us with, what do we do next? I'm open to suggestion, but I'm fine with no degree, but they have to have just basic communication skills, and being able to take minutes might be a small thing for anyone to get, but until you do minutes, yeah, that's the basic requirement that I have. A borough secretary is not, okay, I'm a secretary at a law firm, or a secretary at a doctor's office. A borough secretary can eventually get certified to be a borough secretary. They have to know borough code for borough or township if they're a township secretary. There are all kinds of classes. There's right to know that they have to know. They have to know how to retain documents, and just the basics of how does an ordinance go through, first devising it with the solicitor and then advertising it, and just keeping track of so much. It's more than just any stereotypical secretary. What a secretary is for a municipality is much different. So any suggestions the council may have or any insights would be welcome, but that's what we're facing right now. We don't want to just have a warm body, because that warm body needs to spell, take minutes, and just get it, to progress.
And another thing that not having this person in there is that the circle of duties is not happening because that person would also be responsible for putting all the payment, logging payments in there, which it was a big deal for a lot of you people to be on council because that was lapsing, and now they sit for days, and if the payments aren't logged, they can't be deposited, which means we have no money in the accounts to pay the invoices that we have to pay. So that's another whole big process that can't happen in the office without another person in there.
We're super small. We have to have separation of duties, segregating our duties. And that step, if I'm doing it and then Trent is taking it to the bank, that's really frowned upon, and it becomes a finding in our audit.
For people before, and now it's happening because that person's not there.
What are the other terms you're asking for in this employment, besides, of course, some amount of composition with
So attending the night meeting for council, that's a definite.
right, but as far as what other, what else are you asking you're at? What are the hours?
I'm flexible because of attending that night meeting. We would love for it to be Monday through Friday because in essence, if not, then we're still down to 2 people.
So
if
the
it's
total hours like in your ad, I guess I just want to know.
30, 35,
35?
that's what was included in the budget.
What do you believe is the issue in finding suitable candidates?
People pay more elsewhere. They don't want to come to a place that's off the beaten path, maybe, for that many hours without benefits. Plus, the night meeting might have turned a lot of people off, or knowing that, okay, this isn't just a foot in the door. I want to get my foot in the door with the government because they're dependable jobs that aren't going to go anywhere, but not have the hope of being full-time or getting benefits in the future, having a contract or something like that.
Could we hire 2 part-time people? I'm saying 2 15-hour a week
But then
jobs.
that's 2 people that have to learn.
Well, they'd be doing different tasks. So you might have one person that would do maybe log payments, and that would be their job, and doing minutes, and that would be their job. And then the other person would do the other clerical duties in the office. Just putting it out there. I'm just saying that there's maybe some other options.
No, I see what you're saying, just so that it's flat out.
What are you?
15, and that's all they can do.
What is the pay?
Yeah, like you might have a restriction. You have kids.
Is
you
it
have
published?
It is. Did you move the advertisement in here?
It's in the middle.
It's in the middle.
I know, but it's how.
Where did you have it in the middle here?
That person was not, so this doesn't, I don't see any people. I have no idea.
Where are you seeing pressure on the wages we pay into? For us,
Here.
that used to be a,
We advertise $16.50 to $18. That's the range. For part-time, evenings required.
Are they made aware it's virtually always one evening per month?
Yes,
1 or 2.
yes.
Say 2.
But we're not going to have the problem with the budget this year that we had last year. So that's going to cause the second meeting. So hopefully it'll only be
Well,
one.
we need to get somebody in here. I'd rather get somebody for 15 hours than 0 hours. And
Yeah,
that's a
that's
help.
how I'm looking at
I
it too.
mean-
It feels to me like we may not be, in my opinion, would be that we're not in maybe a position to hire a borough secretary as described, but we can find somebody to help take menial tasks off of yours in terms of plate, who can answer the phone, take a payment in, log a payment, I mean, those are all jobs that I've done myself, so that's how I feel about it. Is that
Okay.
I understand somebody not wanting to come here, put in almost a full-time hour, get a starting rate that's not gonna get above the starting rate. So I understand Elaine's point too. If you have 30 hours a week, two people who have no interest in being in their future in government, but could always use a little extra income, have some hours in the middle of the day that they're not really doing anything else, that would be, they could come in and do filing and do these things and be the person who meets everybody, so you guys don't have to get up from your desk unless they specifically need to speak to the borough manager about something and you can't schedule it later. You know what I mean? But that's where I would fall.
Are you okay with that?
Temporarily, but you will see things suffer, and that you have seen suffer already. There are no minutes again. So, just so it's understood that it'll stay that way with the minutes, but other things
I
hopefully
mean,
will
if the minutes
improve.
are that much of an issue, maybe we can switch that responsibility to someone else that, you know, or maybe you could do the minutes and they're doing a task that's a task that you may do, but they can do. Like maybe we could shift some things, just a thought.
Okay. I appreciate it. Thanks.
Would there be any interest in trying for advertising 20 to 25 hours to see if there's someone who maybe has free time during school hours and would love a part-time job and could do one, possibly two, on rare occasions, nights a month?
How many people did you interview?
Some got jobs right after they scheduled interviews with us. So we're competing with others. But it was 4 that we scheduled.
I say that partially because
We had candidates, you know.
anybody who's looking for a job in a municipal position and wants, you know what I mean, we're never gonna be the solid choice. We're always gonna be the little place that you got your start in and it didn't really go anywhere, but it gave you some, you know, like.
Experience.
Right, you know, I spoke on it with our last secretary, that if that's your goals, you're gonna outgrow us quickly, which is fine, I don't have any problem with that, but I can't justify spending our taxpayers' money on that, you know, for
Well,
you
I
to
don't
have
know
a
that
person.
this job really requires that.
I don't think so either.
Here's a list of, I just want to just briefly, here's a list of some of the tasks that were done by our previous person. And most of these, I mean, there are some that require a little bit of training, but here's what our last employee did. Open the office and close the office. That means unlock the door, turn on the lights. Check emails, update social media, update permit folders, okay? So that's something you have to follow up on and know the permits that people are applying for. Answer calls, log payments, filing, seal ordinances in the booklet, prep and make up flyers, do some computer research that the manager required or requests, compile council minute packets, making copies on the printer, typing minutes that need some amount of skill, like you mentioned, assist Trinda as needed to pull reports, revise and proofread the resolutions and ordinances, organize newsletters, assist with Barry Izette related items like the permits and scheduling inspections, prep the meeting room, prepare the meeting minutes, filing bills and other documents, print and fold newsletters, run an errand to the post office, check the drop box in the door, upload meeting on YouTube. And that's the basic list of duties that we were hiring for. So I mean, a lot of that's really doesn't really require a lot of skill. And I wonder if we're looking at an administrative position for someone that really just needs to do clerical, doesn't have anything to do with government, it's just an office that needs, I mean, there are some specialty things.
Go ahead, Stacy. Say it.
I think we're so used to having professional people on staff, 3 of us full-time, that connect, fill in the blanks of each other when one is working on a project out of the office, whatever it may be, that third person that you're speaking of can fill in and answer the questions of our community, that can do it with knowledge. And you get that by doing, and you get that by working with other professional people as a team.
That's pretty close to what we would have somebody do, except our admin staff would not do things like updating social media. That's actually a fairly high order item because that's putting the message out into the public. So our admin staff wouldn't do that, and they'd be at the top end of your range, full-time with benefit. But so they'd be a little less probably than that description. A few of those items would not be things I would be giving to my front desk person. But the rest of it would be, we would count on them to do proofing and all that. So I think some of those things you may have to look at from that.
Thank you, Charlie.
Thank you.
Any more discussion on that?
So if council's okay, we're gonna re-advertise, tweak it, you know, considering all your comments. But sooner than later,
Do you have the hours in there, or do you just have part-time?
part-time.
Okay.
Indeed's a little,
Yeah,
you
I
know,
just didn't know.
it's rigid, you can't do as much with, like, just running an advertisement. Sometimes it's little criteria that you put in there. Yeah. We could write it.
Well,
Post up for our community?
I would let the hours out of that, is kind of why I asked that. See what you get. I didn't know if you had in there 30 to 35 part-time.
Yeah, I think that is fair.
I think.
Maybe take that out, possibly, and see what you get. Because some of them will only be able to do 15, 20.
It's too close to full-time.
Yeah, that's.
Yeah, this part-time, 30 to 35 hours per week position, it's in our description, the full description.
That's the ad, we gotta,
I like the ad.
suit the person.
Take out those hours and see maybe if it makes a difference.
Okay, we'll get on it.
And the seasonal parks and maintenance person, position was just posted through Facebook, through social media, and we've gotten nothing, so now it's going to Indeed.
I talked to Scott Lesher Saturday when he said he was applying.
Nothing received
Nothing
yet.
in here.
He said
Put the
just picked
deadline.
the application up at the end of last week, but he is definitely interested.
Good.
So
Tell them to get it in.
I did.
Okay. Monica?
Oh, you done? Okay. Ambulance, the only update I have is unfortunately the fundraising dance for March 25th was canceled. That's the only update I have for them.
Carol?
Yes. For the museum, Larry has provided me with a lengthy list of all he's been doing, who came in, what work he's done. If anybody would like to have any questions or like to see it after the meeting, I can show you. His bank deposit checking balance is now $3,710.97. Petty cash is $44. I'd like for people to keep lovely out their calendars. September 9th from 9 a.m. to 2 p.m. will be the anniversary get-together. And also a reminder, there are 4 sets of the hero cards. He still has them on sale for $25. The individual packs are $10 each. So each pack is different heroes, different Topton community residents, and some of their credits, their achievements, and what all they have done that it means to the community. So there's actually 4 separate ones, and you can get them all for $24 for a limited time. That's all.
Are we doing anything for the source water protection plan?
Not right this minute, no.
We have a box in the office, so hopefully in the next couple months, Carol will,
Box of,
of things that we can get out to the community and
but we were talking
Get the
about,
word out.
we need to talk to Long Swamp about getting the spill signs put up and other things.
that will be in our future.
Carol was asking you.
last I knew, I don't know if you were checking on signs with cost. I know, Charlie, you had said that you were gonna check with some communities that have put things up and give us an idea of what they've done for source water. This was months ago.
I will do so, I didn't.
Months ago, you said we had it readily available.
It's been in the MS4 information, some of our stuff, which is groundwater, which is protection.
Looking at what the other communities did so we could.
Well, it's those blue and white signs that you see that say, this is a drinking water area, slow response, so that's what it is, that's what they did.
Yeah.
So that needs to happen.
You have contacts for ordering signs that you're happy with?
We have a vendor, a
Yeah.
normal vendor.
The problem with it is that you're gonna have to coordinate with Long Swamp because we don't own the roads, so we can't just go erect signs on their roads.
We have to get their permission.
I mean, we can do the ones that are right here in town easily enough, but when we're up by the watershed area and all of that qualifies as well, so we need to work with them to.
So they gave us the rights to those wells.
No, we own the property.
So if we own the property, we can't put up a sign without them saying yes?
We don't
We don't.
We don't put signs on their roads. These signs go on the roadway. We could put signs up in the middle of the woods that say Spiller's area, but it doesn't make a difference.
Can it be 5 feet from, or 10 feet from the
No,
center?
it needs to be a street sign that's approved by Long Swamp Township.
And PennDOT,
And PennDOT.
which Long Swamp would not allow a street sign up unless it was PennDOT approved.
And then that would also go towards the MS4
Requirements.
We'd have to, that's something that we'd have to we could let the community know what they are.
Yes.
Anything else? Elaine?
I gave a handout to everybody which is really just a list of the things I'd emailed a few weeks back. It's a tentative list of events. These events were given to me by the borough office of what we do every year. I went through the list. A few dates changed based on the groups that were involved. So there's 10 items on the list for this coming year as far as events. And Stacy had asked that I have the council review this list. If there's any concerns about any of these things.
I have a suggestion. Some of these depend on the size. Since our facilities can't take much traffic anymore, and depending on what we close of the park boundaries to prepare for possibly needing
Porta potties,
Yeah.
yeah. I already, not that it doesn't matter, but I prepared basically a checklist of all the things that could be needed for any event, and it's like an outline of things that we have to look at with the needs and when we prepare for events. So the first, we're working on the early events right now. There's some volunteers from the community, a few. I've asked the office to advertise for any people in the community that would be interested in volunteering, and we've had a few people that want to help out with events because all these events are community-based. So anyway, if you see any issue with these dates, let me know. But the office has this list. They actually gave me this list originally to work with. I've only changed, I think, 2 things. The police, the very first event, which would start in April, and then the senior luncheon, they needed to change that date. But everything else is pretty much set. I did have a request from the Brandywine Educational Foundation. They would like to have an event during one of our events at our park. So I'm thinking it would be the park party on June the 25th, most likely. They would like to do a duck race in the creek, similar to the turtle for Sheldon. Anyway, I wondered if anyone had any concerns about that.
Not as far as long as all the logistics are.
And it would be a fundraising event that they're gonna do where they would, sell a duck and then you'd watch it race and there would be a monetary prize. And they'll figure out the logistics of that, but they wanted me to ask and see if there was any concerns about that. The only concern I had, and I want to talk to our insurance agent, I was asked Stacy about just our insurance for events. I just want to make sure we don't have.
And you also have a certificate of insurance from the organization routinely to make sure that the borough is listed as an additional insured when borough property is involved and you have an event.
So what I'm wondering is that, my question for you, Stacy, was really that if we are having an event in our park, and that is, we're having a park party, and it may have several different things that take place in the course of, say, a 4 or 5 hour event. You might have somebody that's here playing volleyball, and that might be a group that gets together, and then maybe we have a group that's floating stuff down the creek. What is our liability? I mean, because it's our event, and if I, correct me if I'm wrong, Stacy, you were saying that if it's something we are doing in our park, that we have coverage.
Right, and that's why I'm saying you make sure that, first of all, you do check, I agree Stacy should check on what the coverage is with the carrier, with our insurance agent. But it's also critically important that the event, that there be insurance in place, that the organization hosting lists the borough as an additional insured, and that it have the liability coverages that would be needed in case there is some sort of incident.
So we're the host.
Yeah, so we're the host.
Okay, if you're the host, then, and it's not with an outside organization, then again, you check with your insurance carrier to see what the liability. There is potential liability there. It's municipal, it's on municipal land. Real estate is outside of the sovereign immunity. It's improved property. You can be liable for dangerous conditions where injury results. They have to show it was a dangerous condition and there was some form of negligence on the part of the borough. It's not a strict liability. Just because an incident happens, an accident happens, someone falls, someone is injured. There could be any number of reasons that have nothing to do with any borough liability.
Okay, so if we're hosting the event, then, and we have other organizations that are involved in our event, even though it's our event, they have to actually have their own insurance?
They should have their own insurance. Most organizations do. And there should be a certificate of insurance that is given. You ask for it as a requirement for participation.
So we've been doing, we do that in the past?
Mm-hmm.
So like if the church wants to sell hot dog at the National Night Out, I think we had a bunch of...
yeah, if they have a stand, they have a certificate, the church would have a certificate of insurance. I'm sure they carry liability insurance. And for this event, they would be checking with their agent and carrier and getting a certificate showing the borough as an additional insured for the commercial and general liability insurance.
And so what if an organization or if a group of, like the baseball team wants to sell canned bottles of Pepsi, is that something that they need to have insurance to do? I'm just saying.
That's a policy decision on the part of the borough as to what activities you're going to require insurance. I think if food that's not prepackaged is being served, I think then there should be insurance in place. If they're hosting some sort of game or event, then there should be insurance in place. If you're talking about a table where they're just selling sodas and prepackaged foods, then there's more discretion there.
So if we invite somebody into this room to have a cup of tea,
okay, that's not the kind of thing you worry about. That's someone who's just an invitee, a business invitee. Your normal liability insurance covers it. But for an event where you're bringing in outside agencies, local nonprofits, local churches, local civic organizations, they should all carry insurance and they should have no problem giving a certificate of insurance to the borough.
Okay, thank you. So as far as the first events on this list, one thing I just want to put out there, Tidy Up Topton will be in April. And so again, it'd be good to have some giveaway gift cards if anybody knows where we can get some of those. Just mention that for now. And that's about it. Is there any questions? I'd like the office to at least put on our schedule the dates that we're planning these events, and as we go through time here, these events will come together if we have enough participation from people in the community to help organize the events. Are you okay with the office putting on the calendar these events?
Yeah.
Okay. All right, I think that's about it for this. Oh, also, what's that? Oh, yes. Okay. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. We'll go over more details as things progress. Also, I've sent out some letters asking for donations to contribute towards the cost of these events, and we've actually had some so far some very sizable donations from local businesses. I've already sent a letter out to request donations, and I was hoping it would be well received so far. I haven't heard anything but positive things. So I have some thank you letters I'll be sending out to some of the people that did send us some monies.
The account.
Okay, so when these monies come in from people that are donating the money that we can use for these special events, how do we want to handle that? Stacy suggested coding it with a different accounting code, and then I just don't want the money to get gobbled up and used for some other purpose. People are specifically sending us money as a donation to use towards our special events, and I want that money to be protected and only used for that purpose. So are you okay with her just coding it? Because that's the easiest thing to do, right? I was thinking that maybe we should have a separate account or fund, but if that's too much,
Yeah, sure. Well, because that's what we do with the park donations that we're getting now. It has a separate line item. So we would just create a separate line item for donations for park events or call something.
because I just want it to be used for, I mean, I don't want it to be used for paying someone to mow the grass. It's supposed to be used for, and that's what I thought that 20,000 that we put in the budget, that was for maintenance of our, because it wasn't specifically, that donation wasn't specifically stated as for a special event. It was for the park, meaning it's at your discretion what to use it for, right? I mean, it didn't really have a
As
certain...
long as there's some way to segregate the funds, and if coding works to segregate the funds, that's the way that can work. There's no requirement of a restricted account.
Yeah, okay, that's fine, then we'll do that. And then... Okay, sidewalks, I brought that up before, and I've given you a handout on sidewalks. I just put down, you can look over this, the sidewalk installation proposal. So the purpose of me preparing this paper, and if you look at this one page, there's two sides to it. It basically states the reason why I want to talk about sidewalks in our town. And that's because we don't have uniformity in our town. We have many properties that never put their sidewalks in, and now it's a safety issue. We have people walking in the street when there's snow. We've just passed that ordinance to have them shovel the path. We had someone concerned about walking across their grass. The properties that have frontage on our streets are supposed to have sidewalks. And I gave you a list of all of the ordinances on our books. Do you have that paper there handy? It's a staple, the last page of the stapled 3-page paper has a list of 17 ordinances that were passed over the years that all relate to property owners needing to install sidewalks. And we have a total of 73 properties that did not install sidewalks, of which we have 4 that the borough uses or owns, which will really be 3, because the one on White Street's going to be taken care of now. And the rest of those, so we have 700 and, hang on here. We have 783 properties in Topton of which 73 do not have sidewalks. So 610 properties in Topton have sidewalks. Or close to that. And I have a list of the properties that are written here. Some are two-sided, properties that have two sides. And I just wanted your thoughts on it. I guess I was thinking that these people were required to put sidewalks in the front of their house. They never did. How do we want to handle it? It hasn't been talked about.
Well, all you need to do under the Borough Code is if you decide to put in sidewalks, give a notice under the Borough Code that you're required to put in sidewalks within X amount of time. It's independent of an ordinance, it's state law.
Right. But, because we've neglected as a community to really address this forever, and it's going to be a big hit for a lot of people financially. I'm proposing, and this is just something to talk about, one idea I had is giving a 10-year window for people to put sidewalks in. And I've done some research, I have the information on here. I've looked at financial options for people that can't afford to do sidewalks. I talked to our local bank. Our bank is willing to allow residents to open up a savings account where they can accrue money over time to save for the project that they need to do. The bank also has unsecured loans that people can get from a 1 to 5 year term. This is M&T Bank, our local bank. And they will do loans between $1,500 and $35,000, provided the person has ample credit. That they could do a fixed rate type of loan if somebody needs it. They have home equity loans that, provided they have equity in their property, they will do up to a 15-year line of credit. And of course, that loan would be based on a person's debt to income ratio. So they would provide some funding for people who needed to do something. Spoke to several contractors in the area. I have just a general price here. I had someone give me a price for a 40-foot length of sidewalk that's 5 feet wide, 4 inches thick, with the base and excavating to form it out and pour it. It was about $5,100 to $5,200 for that type of a distance. I also talked to contractors that said they would give good discounts if they could do multiple jobs within a block, so they could form out everything and just pour everything because they're buying cement by the yard, so they could just keep rolling with it and they could discount their rates for people. So I just wanted to put some options out there because I think that to put a minimal time on it is really going to not be a good thing for us.
Right, and I've seen deferrals that go with zoning approvals for new owners, new construction. There are a lot of options. It doesn't have to be that you have the power to do it, but you also have the ability to defer.
Well, I think we need to work as best we can with people, and I put down a few things on here. Look over these ideas. I mean, one of them is maybe because we have really, the people that own these properties are people that are probably the 5th owner, 6th owner of the property, and now we're hitting them with something that the original owner was supposed to do, and we never addressed it as a community.
How do we address those and just say no?
Well, the thing is that we have to, if we give a time period, a couple options would be that we would have to, we could escrow money if there was sale.
No, but what about the people who just say no?
It's in your ordinance, I think.
Well, you can first of all, you can take them to court.
Right, so are we prepared to do that?
Well, I really,
you can lien the property. Okay, there's a risk.
So those are the things I really don't want.
No, but I think you really do have to play it out because you're going to have people who just say no.
Well,
And they're going to say, come after me then.
Well, in the past, the town had gone after people. We actually had passed ordinances where we had gone after owners and we passed.
Right, I suppose I'm asking specifically to this council, are you guys all prepared to do that?
No.
Because I'm not going to either.
No.
Okay.
So, it's a nice ask, I suppose, but at the ultimate level, if people return back with, we're not going to do it, then that's our answer.
So then if I decide I want to take out my sidewalk because I don't need to have one, Are you gonna come after me? Because maybe I'll just.
Not to the point of leaning your property or, you know what I mean? No, I wouldn't make it for any resident or property owner.
So this is what I'm talking about. So we have to look at what are we willing to do? We have to have a safe town.
I think we do have a safe town. I don't really think this comes into play much with safety until you get to the issue of White Street. You know, the only people that do have to walk on White Street are the postal carriers, and that's where we hear this safety concern most often and where it's been brought up in the past. I think there are several workarounds to that. I mean, we could simply require everybody to put a mailbox out at the road and then he doesn't have to get out of his car. You know, then they don't need sidewalks anymore. You know, I don't think the rest of the sidewalks, because we're not talking about just the properties that don't have sidewalks. You're talking about everybody who has a cracked sidewalk, everybody who has a tree that's pushing up the sidewalk, everybody who's this and that and that.
Well,
so then we're not talking about
addressed
73
also.
properties though. You know what I mean? We're talking about the majority of the town. And I'm certainly not going to be taking out lawsuits about it.
No, that's not my thought here. I mean, our purpose is really, what our job is to make sure we have the safety and welfare of our people in our town. And if we have areas where people are tripping over bad sidewalks, that's a problem. And then if we have snow and now we have people walking in our street, now the borough of Topton is liable if somebody gets killed in our street.
But we have an ordinance to shovel the grass. We just did that.
Yes.
So that takes that safety issue out, correct?
That was
The point of that, right?
That was the point of that.
I'm not gonna make what's exactly.
Well, we're trying that first, but, you know, do we want to do anything further? So.
You know,
Absolutely
in
not.
my mind, I think that we can't do anything until we do our own properties. And I don't, you know, everybody's free to look into whatever they want to, but this is so low on my priority list of things that we should be focusing on. We don't have a backup well while our streets are falling apart. We have pipes bursting all over town. You know, businesses after businesses closing down and leaving, and we're spending a lot of time bickering about sidewalks.
Well, I don't know that we're paying for this, we're just putting it out there, so.
Yeah, but we have to do every corner. That'd be on us.
Yeah.
When we're
Every
trying to
88
do
ramps.
sidewalks, we have to do every corner.
Right,
We have no money to do that.
because the ADA ramps, they have to go. in.
Right.
Those are $2,000. Well, they were. Who knows what they are now?
Right, who knows what they are?
Yeah. Yeah.
And so do we want to do this when the streets get redone and the curbing? Is that when I'm
That would be
saying?
the only way I would be looking to implement anything.
Well,
is
then
if
that's
we're
okay.
going to
I'm
rebuild
bringing
the
this
whole
up for
street.
discussion. So
Yeah.
if that's what you're thinking, then let's come up with some kind of a plan to address it. If you want to do it that way, then it's going to take 25 years or more from what you were saying to get everything.
I mean, at this point, you know, we have one project
project
plan for the streets, and then after that, we're a dry well, so
Yeah.
there really isn't a plan for that going forward, you know, I mean. But I think this causes a lot of anger in the community.
Well, I have to, look, I've got sidewalks, I got everything.
I understand, you know, I understand, but I think
It affects all of us.
I think it riles people up on something that really isn't worth riling them up for. Because I'll tell you, like I said, you know, the ultimate end to this is if 80% of people tell me they're not gonna do it, I'm not taking them to court. We can't afford to take them to court, you know what I mean? So there really isn't any, we can ask them to please put in a sidewalk, but we don't have the weight behind it to do anything about it if they don't.
When we're trying to enforce at court, this is just for information. If it's to enforce an existing ordinance, and the judge says, well, yeah, that's an existing ordinance, so the borough wins, do we generally get court cost reimbursed from the,
Yeah, but it's leaning against the property.
You can get you're right, the court costs can be part of the order, but you're correct, it would be leaned against the property if not paid. I mean, the only thing that a court order has is the power of contempt. And I don't see this borough wanting to put its residents in jail over sidewalks.
No. And that's not the intention of this proposal.
Well, I guess maybe I'm giving you a little bit of hint of the feedback I get.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Is that people are flat out like, I'm not gonna do this. So you can pass whatever ordinance you want to, you can tell me you're gonna do it. I don't have the money, so come after me if you want.
So should we not have any ordinances in town? I mean.
No, but I think you need to, you know, in a borough this size, we need to pick our battles. You know?
Oh, absolutely,
And we got some big
absolutely.
battles in front of us right now, and I think we're spending too much time on a very small battle.
Right.
This problem exists
Correct.
because
This is not the biggest priority on our plate. I'm bringing it up because I've had people that, and I don't know, I've had people in our audience for years saying they're angry that they had to replace sidewalks, and other people don't have them. So we've got 610 people that comply with our ordinances, and they're being held to a higher standard because they did the right thing, and now we've got some that aren't. So I get it, it's a hardship.
I understand what you're saying, I just think it's not, to me, it sounds like an impossible fix. It sounds like it's something we should almost just drop, but,
We have this,
everybody's free to. Okay.
we have this problem, although these ordinances go back 50, 60, 70 years, some of them, because council after council after council has kicked the ball down the road, and I say this council should be looking into forming some kind of plan for some time in the future, not just keep kicking it down the road. Not it's our top priority. I'm not saying that at all. But just start dealing with it.
Well, then my suggestion would be put together a solid plan and we'll vote on it and put it to bed or one way or the other.
I mean, and like you said, this isn't a priority.
Right.
It's not the biggest issue we have, but we have to do something to address even our curbs. Have you looked at the curbs in this town? Everything's just falling apart.
I think it's unfortunately a symbol of an economic position that we're in.
Yeah, and then also what you did, all that work on the roads. Why haven't these roads been repaved and all these?
We don't have any money.
Exactly,
We
but
do the residents.
we also have been, kicking it down the can down the road for how many councils?
Yeah, I think this one gets kicked down the road for exactly that reason.
I would say so. When I first moved into town like 20 years ago, I had to put a curbing in. I think it was $1,100. Pisses me off to this day.
I'll tell you the truth, the way it works, we're looking at paving Washington Street this year. I've specifically looked at those people's curbs because I know that they're gonna be responsible for fixing those curbs, and unfortunately, some of these people are gonna be hit with an expense that they can't do, but the trade-off there is that I'm paving their whole road. You know what I mean? And they're gonna have a brand new road essentially for however, you know
Well,
what I
if
mean?
that's how you want to do it, you can
That's
do
how
it
you're
when
gonna have
the
to
roads
put
get
a sidewalk
repaved.
all along the baseball field.
But we're not paving the
Because they're
roads, it's so
curbing.
expensive.
Well, we're not enforcing sidewalks, but
Okay, so this subject is, are we
Let's
doing?
put this up for discussion, we're not
Okay.
voting on anything.
No, but I wanted to know if we're gonna continue, going back and forth with this discussion, or we know where we are for now and just move on.
Actually, he brought up a good one that we had started to talk about, is as part of the Washington Street pump station, we're going to do the intersection with, I can't even read my own plan.
Hefner.
The alley.
Oh, the out, okay. Yeah, I know where
Street, and then
yeah,
to
that's what I thought.
the intersection on the next street, but we're gonna do the whole alley. And Ethan has been talking about doing Washington Street. And generally before we do put one of those projects out, we will go through and do an inspection and bring back. Unfortunately, without even needing to look, what I can tell you is one side of that road does not have sidewalk. That's the ball field, so that's part of what my inspection will say. So you would get that inspection from us that will say.
That's a long section of,
Which ones.
it's almost half the block.
Where there isn't sidewalk, where there's deficient sidewalk, where there's deficient curb. And just like we did at Barclay, we'll bring that to you for action and how we proceed. So that, as we talk through, if we're gonna put that, that's what we typically would do for that street. And it'll also impact the alley and I think the alley's, if I remember walking it, it's just an alley. But it'll affect the other road intersection too, the properties that we're in.
High Street.
High Street.
So on Washington Street, if there's areas where the curb needs to be redone, the borough notifies the resident and they have to do it.
I believe so.
Yeah, what we did at Barclay was we notified all the property owners that had deficient existing sidewalk or curb, the nature of the deficiency, and gave them the timeline, and they had until, based on our proposed construction timeline, they had until we were essentially ready to do the street to do their work. It did have properties without sidewalk, and the decision was not to have them add sidewalk.
Okay.
That concludes
Borough
our-
plus one.
Do you have something to say, or are you good?
No, I have something to say.
Okay.
For something that's not a top priority, the sidewalks are brought up every month. So it sure sounds like it's a priority to some people. So after the January meeting where Elaine referenced the 17 ordinances, I requested that she send those ordinances to me, which she graciously did immediately. Okay. I read them. They're interesting reading. I would employ all of you to read them. First of all, I highlighted a map of the streets that those 17 ordinances refer to. It does not refer to all the streets. One of the ordinances refers to Y Street, which is a hot topic. That ordinance strictly says curb and gutter. It does not reference sidewalk at all. Now, I know there are a lot of properties that don't have sidewalk. And some of the issue is the mail. One of those properties belongs to, he was a long-standing mailman in Topton, who is since deceased. He does not have sidewalk. These people that do not have sidewalk on Y Street were pretty substantial people. Brother Smith, I'm sure Brother Smith would have put in a sidewalk if he had to. I don't know how many of you know Brother Winfield Smith. He has sidewalk on Hall Street, which is included. He does not on Y Street. My contention is these people were not required to put in sidewalk. It is not that they sat there and said, no, I'm not going to do it. It is a case of it was not required. I also have a picture of my neighborhood. Houses across the street were there. Where my house is and the houses surrounding me, it's just an empty lot. Now, at the time these houses were built, they had to get approval. I would say the borough approved that they did not need sidewalk. If it was approved that they did not need sidewalk at the time they were built, then you can't come and say you now need sidewalk unless there are extenuating circumstances. If you're going to redo the street, I don't think people will complain. Yeah, no, they'll complain. They'll complain, but they'll do it. But you just can't willy-nilly say you need to put in the sidewalk because I want you to put in the sidewalk. It doesn't work that way. You probably have ordinances or approved plans somewhere. I'm trying to find them with the help of Stacy. I did a right to know because I want to know. And if it turns out that it was approved, that there was no sidewalk required, there should never be a discussion again about these properties. Point blank. That's what I have to say tonight.
Thank you. Yes.
Brian Fronizer, as a former letter carrier, I can tell you that once a delivery is established at a house, you cannot force them to put curbside. No. You can ask the resident, but you can't force them or anybody. The post office cannot force. Once it's established, you can't. They can't. You can ask them, and they.
I'm gonna bet they'd rather pay for that than a sidewalk.
I guarantee.
Most people are going to want their mail at the house.
Well, yeah, but if the choice was between it's gonna cost you $6 grand to put in a sidewalk or $100 to put a mailbox out
True.
yet.
I guess my other thing that I'd like to point out is when Barclay Street was done, for some miraculous reason, the Topton Borough didn't have to do their sidewalk, which I think is pretty low. And I think it's also pretty low that if you're gonna request anybody in this town to do sidewalks, you better have all your property have sidewalks on it. And if you can't meet the ordinance, how can you tell somebody else? And you say you have money, so how are you gonna put sidewalks in when, I don't see how you can enforce anybody if you can't meet your own ordinances.
Okay, that is what we said, so I think everything has been covered here, and we said we're not. Okay, so we are now moving on to streets and property. Ethan?
Nothing at the moment other than that we're gonna start talking about Washington Street formally.
Eric?
Mine's been covered, and it sounds like there's gonna be a lot more coming up, so get ready.
Michelle?
Okay. County reports. Has everybody reviewed the list of bills and transfers? Anybody have any questions? Can I make a motion to pay the bills and pay the bills? Sorry.
I think Ethan. Okay. All those in favor?
Thank you.
Anyone opposed?
Yeah. For the treasurer report, the general account has $204,397.83. Water account, $34,057.39. Sewer account, $31,865.82. Reed bed sewer, $5,003.15. Pool account has a zero balance. Payroll, $6,445.37. The recreation park project has $305,085.92. Liquid fuels has $269,428.75. Fire fund, $51,970.09. Ambulance fund, $2,189.65. And ARPA funding has a balance of $217,454.46. The accounts receivable, after the last water sewer bill went out, there was 128 late notices, which is the first notice after the 30 days. We haven't gotten to the shut-offs yet, and I don't have an accurate number because there's some checks that haven't been filled yet on where we stand on what's left. I think that's the end of that. Do you want me just to do the banners quick and then?
Yeah, you know what, I want to just say something that has, because that's due to the utility polls. If anybody has seen or sees their contract that had contracted out that DV Resources to inspect all the Med-Ed-owned poles for viability to make sure that they aren't rotted through or need to be replaced, and they are marking that. Is that something that's going on countywide?
There have been, so you hear in the news after every storm about the power companies going to support other power companies. A big reason for that is aging infrastructure, just like your water and sewer, and those poles, they start to rot. The creosote, it's not creosote, but the new creosote doesn't do as good of a job as the old nasty stuff, so the poles are breaking a lot earlier and quicker.
It just seems, I've seen Med-Ed working on poles like other places, and I was wondering if that was something that they're doing all over, because I talked to the guy the other day, and he was going around.
They were doing Long Swamp today.
Today? Yeah, over the weekend, where I don't know how
Do you know
far.
how long it takes them to replace one of those poles after they mark it? A long time. Because they're on the manpower.
Yep, that's what, they contracted out, so they're not even doing the inspections, and if storms come, they're not.
Sunday, he was out too. Nice people.
Yes?
I had somebody question me on regards to they got one of these flags and it couldn't be put on their street or on their block. Is there any reason why you're only doing certain streets or certain blocks?
Because we only have authorization to have banners up on main,
Home
twice.
Okay, I was just,
They
I wanted to tell
authorization.
them, so they live on the different street. Okay.
Yeah. So currently we have 40 banners up We have 10 more that should be here any day and 10 that are being ordered this week, so.
It's only 3 streets.
Plus the school, plus the school
Yeah, plus
property.
there will be some.
High school and the middle school.
They were just concerned that they couldn't have it on their street.
There's,
Yeah, I had a bunch of people ask me, but unfortunately, that's. those
We had
are
to
the
get
ones.
that, like, sign off on being, like, insurance and stuff to use their poles, right? That was,
Yeah.
Okay.
We're at 60.
Good, good turnout.
From the engineer's report side, most of it's fairly static. The NPDS is being processed by DEP. Chapter 94, as soon as I get Alex's signature on it, we will get it in this week. No real change on the MS4. The TASA project, again, is weather dependent for the asphalt. The asphalt plants are not open yet. Once they open, a lot of work will start there. The other thing with it for you is we're working through getting some additional funding potentially from PennDOT. And so it does go to the one at the bottom. It's looking pretty good. We'll get to use the DCNR grant for new work. But we should have that information shortly. It sounded very promising. On the grant side, the LSA grant, Washington Street being the first one, Keller Street being the second one. Their meetings of CFA are the 16th this week at 5:16. Hopefully we hear something sometime before we get the third grant into that stream. Nobody knows why they're being slow. And the questions on the small water and sewer grant, the gentleman asking the questions indicated a decision time of June, July for that program. So that's what we're expecting in that case. It's a little different ballgame. It's coming from a different funding source. So that we have some hope there. Washington Street is going out to bid. If we do get it awarded this week for grant, we will incorporate that in the package. Need to incorporate some stuff with Ethan into that package. For there, that's a quick summary.
have you heard anything back from Tracy since our meeting? Because I know she was gonna look into some of the grants that we talked about. Penny
Penny
check.
click.
Oh.
Penny click.
Yeah,
She did put in letter.
and that's the right word and place to go. It's just because you got to do something.
Any other old business?
I just wanted to say, we spoke about talking with Deca to get rid of Cleveland Street and Jefferson Street. Looks like they've owned it since '82.
There's sign ordinances on the books. So obviously there was a public hearing back in 1982 and an ordinance adopted.
Which is nice because they're taking care of it, but just thought
Didn't have to go through anything else?
Didn't have to go in.
I can stop trying to get a meeting with them.
Yep.
I wasn't trying very hard. I don't want to, they painted a big
All right.
picture. It wasn't again.
I make a motion to adjourn.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed?